This is MacroView Television, and welcome to a brand new edition of Taiwan Outlook, the program that presents the different faces and let you hear their stories on Taiwan. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. Have you heard of the Goethe-Institute? What is it, and what kinds of services and programs does it offer? We're going to find out on today's program because we are delighted and honored to have Mr. Jens Rösler, who's currently the Director of Goethe-Institute in Taiwan, to talk about the programs and services available at the Institute. Welcome to our program, Jens.
Hello, I'm happy to be here with you today.
Yes, well, delighted to have you on the program. First, Jens, we understand that you came to Taiwan for the first time this year, 2016, in February, to become the director of the Goethe-Institute in Taipei. And tell us a little bit about you. Like, we know you originally from, Germany. And where are the positions have you held before coming to Taiwan?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here in Taiwan, and I started in February.
Okay.
And actually, I've been in this I call
Asia.
In Asia for a longer time.
Yes.
And before Taiwan, I have been working in Hong Kong for 4 years.
Good.
And before in Shanghai. So the Goethe life is life changing the country and the place every 4 years, which is quite challenging and interesting.
All right. Yeah. And let me ask you, when was the Goethe-Institute established in Taiwan?
Yeah. The Goethe-Institute in Taiwan was established in 1962.
1962.
And it is the oldest Goethe-Institute in East Asia.
Really?
Yes,
all right.
Yes.
So it's been over 50 years.
Yes,
all right.
yes.
We understand that the Goethe-Institute is to promote German culture, German language. Yeah. Let me ask you, what kinds of programs and services does the Goethe-Institute in Taipei offers?
We have basically 3 areas.
Okay.
One area is the foreign language teaching. We teach German language, and most of these target groups, they would study in a German university. Some of them are tourists who want to go to Germany to use the language. The second big area is cultural exchange, and this covers various arts fields in film, theater, music, dance, fine arts, literature, and all these programs are very much in cooperation with our local Taiwanese partners. So we do not want to spread German culture in a very one-sided way. It's all about dialogue and about our partners' interests and wishes. The third area is the library and information exchange, which is changing a lot now in this digital age. And these are the 3 main areas.
Okay. And how big is the staff that you have available? I suppose some of them is, paid staff, and some of them may be volunteers or students.
Yes.
Okay.
Our staff is around 45 colleagues, 15 in the admin sector, and around 30 teachers. And in the Goethe world, in these 153 Goethe institutes around the world, this would be mid-size institute.
Okay. Yeah, there's still a pretty good presence in Taiwan.
Thanks.
Yes, and we understand, Jens, that you came to Taiwan for the first time in February this year.
Yes.
What was your first impression of Taiwan, Taiwan or Taipei when you first arrived?
Yes, I was really very impressed because my first impression was Taiwanese people are very polite, very friendly. It's very accommodating, very easy for a foreigner to work here in Taiwan. And the interesting thing is, to me, as I stayed in other parts of East Asia, I see influences of many East Asian countries here due to the very specific Taiwanese history, and this makes it very multifaceted.
In your experience so far, yes. Other than Taipei, Jens, have you traveled other parts of the island? I mean, for example, Kaohsiung, Taichung, or on the East Coast?
Yes, I went to Taichung, to Kaohsiung, to Tainan, and privately traveling also the northern part of the island and the east part, which to me is very interesting, as many German people would like nature a lot, and,
yes,
and the east part is has this
very
lush green landscape, which is really impressive.
Okay, and we also understand that, you have, like you said, stay in the Chinese-speaking region for the last 9 years.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
4 years in Shanghai, 4 years in Hong Kong, and now, first year and running in Taipei. Yes. Can you tell us what are some of the similarities and also differences that you have been able to observe in the 3 places, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Taiwan?
One of the similarities, and at the same time differences, similarities, I would say the language, which is in many areas Mandarin, though I'm very much aware as a Mandarin speaker that you have different words, different vocabulary, sometimes even different tones in all these regions. And well, Taiwan is specific in the way with Hong Kong that you use the long characters. And basically, I would say, though there are lots of historic, sometimes political differences, how I would perceive some kind of core Chinese mentality would be this very organized way of thinking, at the same time being very pragmatic, to tackle challenges, to adapt to changing influences, circumstances, to be very hardworking.
Yes.
In this Chinese speaking area, people really like to travel also a lot to experience different countries. That's what I noticed with all my friends in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and now in Taiwan.
Okay.
And yes, and this makes it a very, very ideal world region because it's at the same time it's safe.
Okay.
It's a very safe region of the world in the environment of the cities, and safe in the sense of, I would say, a low crime rate, which cannot be taken for granted. There are world regions where you have a much higher crime rate, and this is a very good thing.
And yes, I will suppose that when you travel in these different parts in the Chinese-speaking region, that you, of course, mastered the language very well, but how about the food? I mean, do you find it difficult? I mean, or were you able to find authentic German cooking in all 3 different places?
Yeah, that definitely, it's possible to find German food and also authentic German food, because I would say Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Taipei, it's really world cities, and you have foreigners there, and also chefs who would be able to prepare your German food. But at the same time, I think when you live abroad, you should try the local cuisine. And I suppose the good thing with Taiwan is that historically you have part of the people coming from very different regions in China, and I learned that they brought their cuisines with them, and so you have this very different local Chinese cuisines and Taiwanese cuisine, and I think here it's a very interesting blend, and you can really find any kind of these traditional local Chinese cuisines here, and so it makes it a very interesting place also from this respect.
Okay.
Yes.
And the final question I have for the first part of the program is that, Jens, when you first came over to Asia, to Chinese-speaking region 9 years ago, what was the biggest adjustment that you had to make? Even though you traveled to other parts of the world outside of Germany, before coming to Asia, I mean, what were some of the things that you had to make adjustments? The way that people interact with others. You already said that food was not an issue. Language was not an issue. At the time, maybe 9 years ago, you were still learning in the process of Chinese Mandarin. What was the biggest adjustment?
Actually, I think it depends also on the role where you are. I also even came earlier as a student to study in the university in Beijing. But when you work with people or in a certain position, it gives you different different challenges sometimes. I would say in the beginning, I wouldn't perceive it as a negative thing, but working with colleagues, the local colleagues, I noticed that the people here are much more pragmatic in a good way.
Yes.
And you see, when you live abroad, sometimes you also get aware very much about your Germanness in some ways, because you feel you are different. And German people sometimes tend to, I would say, put a lot of emphasis on the language, and also on the culture, and so it makes it very interesting place also in from this respect. Okay. And the final question I have for the first part of the program is that, Jens, when you first came over to Asia, to Chinese-speaking region 9 years ago, what was the biggest adjustment that you had to make? Even though you traveled to other parts of the world outside of Germany, I think here it's a very interesting blend, and you can really find any kind of these traditional local Chinese cuisines make long plans of everything. They structure everything, and then before you do something, I exaggerate it a bit, but sometimes you think ages and ages and do feasibility studies on whether to do something or not.
Okay.
And from my experience, I would rather say people in the Chinese-speaking world, they say, let's just try it. And it's a try. Okay. And if it fails, then we know that it has failed. And it's not a bad thing because we have this experience. Okay. And the good thing about this pragmatism is that people in the Chinese-speaking world are much quicker sometimes. Okay. And this was a change when I started working. And this sounds very technical, but you find this, I mean, because it's very cultural, you find it in all areas, in all job areas. I think when German people or foreigners work together with Taiwanese people or with in mainland China, they would quickly notice. But I wouldn't consider it a bad thing. It's just something which you have to be aware of and find the golden means or understand each other. And
Jens, we've been talking about your experiences and the functions and the mission of the Institute. Let's talk a little bit in this part of the program about you. And then first, you speak Mandarin Chinese very well. This is a very difficult language. Many people are learning or have learned, but it's not something that you can master overnight or in a short period of time. Let me ask you, of all the foreign languages that you could have picked, why did you pick Mandarin Chinese?
The thing is that I had studied foreign languages before, but rather the ones which are easier to Western people, the ones with the Latin language system. And I wanted to study a language which is totally different, and actually it was, in some ways, it was jumping into cold water, as we say, and because I hadn't been to China before, I didn't have a notion about China or Taiwan, and so it was just a very sudden idea. I would say more from a linguistic point of view, because I had always liked studying languages. And the thing is, I'm also very much interested in music, playing the piano, and in some ways languages are very much related to music, because you have the sound, you have the way you pronounce the words, and in some ways Chinese language is a very music-related language because you have the tones. And so my first interest was the language itself, whereas other Germans, they might say, oh, I'm interested in the economy or history or in politics or literature, and this comes with it, or it came with it later. Sometimes the cake tastes better if you have tried it, and then you want to have more and more. But this was the beginning, and the beginning was really the interest in the language. And,
All right. And once you're being exposed to the Chinese language, how did you find about learning the Chinese culture? Was it equally difficult, or was it something making the language learning a lot easier?
Definitely, if you are in the country, having contact with the people every day, it gives you much more incentive. And part of the language studies was in Germany in university, and we also had lecturers from Taiwan and from mainland China. And but when you are in the environment, you listen to the radio, to television, you watch television, you speak with the people, and in some areas you are really forced to speak Chinese, because some people, they wouldn't speak English fluently, and this gives you a real incentive, because it's you are using it, and in the beginning sometimes it could be also a bit I wouldn't say discouraging, but you need a lot of patience, because I would say I'm not untalented for languages, but with the other ones I studied, the Western languages, the progress was very quick, whereas with Chinese, you need much more patience in the beginning.
So were there ever any time that you felt, oh, this is too difficult? And it's a completely different basis upon which I need to learn the language. I don't want to pursue it any further.
No, I would say you have this experience maybe with every language. You reach a certain level, where it's, well, the beginning is very difficult.
Yes.
And then it gets easier.
Yeah.
Let's say the second year or the third year, and then you reach a point.
Yeah.
But
Plateau,
then it stops sometimes,
yes. Yeah.
and then to go on,
yes.
this would be quite difficult.
Okay. But you just kept going, and you've done very well.
Yes.
Because, Jens, we understand in addition to your native German and Chinese Mandarin, you also, English, of course, you also speak many other foreign languages. Can you please tell us how many different foreign languages that you speak? Why, what was the motivation for you to learn all of these languages?
Well, in university, I also took the subject called Romance literature, which is Spanish and French language and literature. And then when I was in Hong Kong, I studied Italian language for 4 years, just for fun. Also took some certificates from the Ministry of Education in Rome. And my basic incentive is I think, to speak with this German philosopher, Wittgenstein, the limits of my language are the limits of my world, which is just to say that some things in a language, some words you cannot translate specifically. Well, you can translate them, but the meaning changes. You have words in each language which you cannot 100% translate into the other language, and it's this really gave me an incentive to, because I think if we study one language, we are really in this world, in this culture, and if we want to understand this this culture, we really have to speak the foreign language, or as Nelson Mandela also said, I don't quote it specifically now, but his idea was saying, if you speak a language, let's say English, any language, you can understand what the person says. But if you want to understand the person himself or herself, you must know his or her language. And this is really the point. Technically, you can use English for many things, and it's good that we have English as an international language. But to understand the person, the cultural background, the mindset, definitely you have to go speak the foreign language, and it's at the same time it's a strategic thing, which sometimes in the business sector or political sector, sometimes some people don't appreciate it or are not aware of it. Some appreciate, but some not. Some people think you just have the technical dialogue and you do everything in English at the same time with any negotiation, irrespectively of whether it's in politics, in the economy, in culture. You need to know the person behind. You need to reach the person in an emotional way, which can also be an advantage to get your aims through. And that's when language comes into it, the knowledge of the foreign language, of the culture. And I would say it's much, much more than just the soft factor. Sometimes people just call it, oh, it's a soft factor. Just study economy and learn the hard things, and then a plus a foreign language, it's good to have, but it's I would say it's much, much more. And
yes, indeed. And for people who don't know you well, they look at you and say, Jens, you know so many different languages. Did you have the career, option to become a diplomat? In many ways that, Jens, you are a cultural diplomat, for Germany. But in the sense that when you were learning all these different languages, the people come up to you and say, hey, Jens, you're qualified, definitely, to be, the next diplomat, to represent Germany in other parts of the world?
Well, I would consider myself to be not an official diplomat, but a cultural diplomat in some ways. And I'm very happy with my job. I think it's in contact with the host country is different. In my area, it's very much with the artists, with the filmmakers, museum people, musicians. And for the traditional diplomats, they are definitely also having cultural contacts with the host country, and a very main focus would also be on the economic relations, on the politicians, on the official contacts. And I am very happy to be in this area to deal with the artists, and also through our language courses with the very, very Taiwanese normal people and to know also when they study my language, to know what they feel, what concerns them here in Taiwan. And in this way, it's a very refreshing contact, I would say. And I'm very happy to be in my area and to have the contact with the target groups I just described.
All right. And yes, you must be told repeatedly that you do have a very impressive language ability. And do you think this language ability has really helped you in terms of your career and also in terms of for you to function effectively in your jobs?
Yeah, I would say it's very important, as I just said, to get an emotional link to the person you are talking to, and also, but basically I would say my experience is that we should do what we really like and where we see our motivation and our vision, also do the things we are good at. And sounds very easy, but sometimes we must discover what we really like, what we are good at. And that's, I think, irrespectively of what we are doing, if we have a passion for it. That's the main thing, to have a passion for it, to develop it or to keep it, and to be good at it, and to know what's my strength, and then we can be happy and have a good life and be happy in the job, and I think that makes sense.
Yes, and yes, you certainly a very productive, citizen in the global village. And you have traveled to different parts of the world, and you know different cultures and different languages. How do you think that the different languages that you're being exposed to and the places that you have stayed in, that experience in totality, how has that changed your life? Because, for the places that you have stayed there long, 3 to 4 years, and then you probably look at yourself, home is all these places. You have friends, you have established contacts and things. So how do you think the language and the exposure to different cultures and peoples has really changed your life?
I think that it is, cultures are very different and diverse. I think I have to make a bit bigger loop. I think in this big world, there are certain needs and things which are common in all countries. So sounds very basic, but everybody wants to be healthy, to be happy, to have an income, to be loved, to have a relationship, and this would be, I think, universal. It's the same, irrespectively of whether you are in Africa or in Norway or in Japan or in Latin America. The other thing is that cultures are working differently, the way they are organized, the way peoples interact. And my philosophy would rather be to have this privilege to live in different countries, to take the good things I see, the good impressions from every place. And this is a bit eclectic in some ways, like with a bunch of flowers, that you take everything, but to keep the good things, and sometimes also, well, when you're in some countries, or in each country, you also have sometimes experiences, sometimes which are not perfect, or to say, oh, it's relative, and maybe in Germany they get angry with this, but in the other country they wouldn't. Or so in some ways the framework of reference is different in any place. Of course, yes. At the same time, I noticed when living abroad, you also realize in some ways how German you are. But it's very important, I would say, over the years also to keep some core identity of how I would perceive who I am. One part of it is definitely taking the good influences from every place, but also to stay yourself with these changing frameworks. The core should stay the same, and it makes me aware of my Germanness in some ways.
Let me ask you next. As the director of Goethe-Institute here in Taipei, what do you plan to do to promote German culture? You have mentioned earlier in the program about the different programs that you have available, but we know that you like arts very much. Do you think that there is a role for the art to play in terms of promoting the German culture and also letting the Taiwanese culture to be better known back home to the people?
So I think the first thing which is very, very important, that we are working with partners.
Okay.
And this means, working with partners, it means that I ask them, what are your interests? What would you like to know? And then I make offers. And I think that's very important in every dialogue. In all areas, if you just start talking about your things, it gets very difficult. So that's why we ask our partners in the museums, in film, in dance, theater, what are your interests? And the other thing is really what I would like to underline. In this digital age, sometimes we think it's very easy. You can download everything. You can watch everything. It's very close to you on your iPad. But I really believe that cultural exchange really needs a direct contact. And that's why I think even in the 21st century, to have cultural exchange centers and cultural exchange is very important. And we would ask our partners, what are you interested in? And then we organize our programs, and this is one of the main focus areas. And
all right. And how about the role of the arts? I know you're very big on the arts, and do you think that there is that market out here in Taiwan that you can promote German culture through the arts?
I think this is really impressive here, because my perception after only 3-4 months is that many Taiwanese people are very, very interested in foreign cultures and also in culture itself. That's maybe due to historic reasons also, because you have a very strong tradition of history here, which didn't got destroyed by influences. And just to give one example, we had theater groups from Germany here last year, and they had plays in German language with the Chinese subtitles, and you had 2,000, 3,000 people sitting there watching the plays from Berlin theater, and this really shows how much interest is there. At the same time, I have to ask myself, what about the German people? What do they know about Taiwanese culture? And unfortunately, I would have to say, not very much. Just imagine.
Not yet, anyway. Okay. So in the sense that you also have the same challenge in terms of promoting German language. We understand that German is probably not well spoken or often spoken here in Taiwan, and even though we do have a German population, but I don't suppose it's very big. And so how do you then plan to promote German language to the locals here in Taiwan?
Well, first thing is, like in every area, you must have good quality. And good quality means having good teachers, motivating teachers, experienced teachers, and at the same time you must give contact points to Germany, because this is really a challenge to study a language of a country which is 12 hours flight away. But at the same time, we have so many students here. We have around 5,600 students each year studying the German language in the Goethe-Institute, and in the past years it has been increasing. There is a large number of them going to study there. Some of them work in Germany, some of them go as tourists, and well, definitely we also have marketing activities. One of these activities would be our so-called, we call it speak dating, not the speed dating. Speed dating, that's what the young people do. They sit at one table and then they like to meet people. And this speak dating, that's to spread European languages. This will be in September. We will have 15 tables with 15 languages. You study each language for 5 minutes. You go to the next table, and then you get a stamp in your so-called European language passport. And then you can win small prizes. And this is to create awareness about European diversity and language. And because, I mean, when you see the different world regions, you really must be aware of it, that Europe is so popular with many tourists because on a relatively small geographical place you have so many languages and cultures, and foreign tourists appreciate it for that. And this is, let's say, it's different from the big Russian world or Northern America, where you have English apart from Quebec, French, but mostly English. And Europe, Western Europe, and Middle Europe, Eastern Europe, you have so many different languages, and this makes it challenging and interesting for many Taiwanese.
We know that learning a foreign language, what is most important is, through education. We have young students, I teach part-time at a local university. We have students who want to go over upon graduation or take a break in the middle of their study to go to Europe, to learn a language, to study about the culture, the people, or even get a degree in the process. But according to the numbers I have, Jens, that the places that the people go to most, atop the list is the UK. And then next you have France, and then third is Germany. Germany is third on the list. A lot of people will speculate that Germany is equally attractive, if not more, than the first two. But could it be because of the German language? It is something that's, of course, not as popular among the young people as English, and not many people, other than the number you just gave me, which is very impressive. But, could it be the language that a lot of people impose inhibition on themselves and decided not to pursue opportunities in Germany? What do you think?
So I guess you might want to ask me why we are not the champion, or basically I think it's good to be the champion, but in this case I would also say, well, if we are not the champion, it's what you said is the quantity point of view, but quantity, I think the quality is also important. I would say, apart from the numbers are important in some ways, but it's important to have good students, to have interested students, and to increase the numbers. Sometimes there are mechanisms you can change yourself as an institution. As I said, I must try to do good work, to bring good quality, to be motivating, to have motivating colleagues, but also to motivate my colleagues, to have a quality insurance. We have audit systems, assessments within the Goethe-Institute. The other thing, the big thing, that's the image factor. And images, I guess especially you're working in the media, images don't change very quickly, and I think Germany, according to these international ratings, has a good image, and we can be proud of it, but you must also constantly work for your image. And how an image is created has lots of different factors, and I think images can't be changed very quickly, and I think it's good we are among the first 3 countries. It's already a good thing, and I would say it's very much the image which is also an impact, and sometimes image factors can be very subjective also, or sometimes images, they remain the way they are, or they can also change.
But Jens, you've been here for a few months. You should know that Germany does have a very good image in Taiwan. People in general, when you talk about things made in Germany, people's first response is it's got to be very well made. Whether you're talking about the cars, you're talking about some of the industrial products. Certainly, when people think about Germany, it's always thumbs up. The stuff made in Germany generally considered top quality. And given the fact that you do have a very good image of Germany in Taiwan, how do you then plan, from the functions and the programs at the Institute, try to raise the local interest and awareness about the German culture and in particular the German language?
I think it's very important to be in contact with our partners, to ask what they are interested in. We have various programs like working with artists from Germany, coming from Germany and supporting exhibitions in museums. We work with the Taipei Arts Festival very closely, with the Taipei with various film festivals, with the main museums in Taiwan, and with many theaters, and this is very important. And at the same time, I would always say quality, quality, quality. And that's why we have a department in the headquarters who are really very much analyzing the German art market, and where you have specialists in the different areas of culture and arts, and they would say, my task is to analyze the Taiwanese market, to talk to our Taiwanese partners and say, what are you interested in? And then they say me, oh, this artist or that artist. And then we recheck from the headquarters, or the Taiwanese people tell me, for example, I'm interested in modern German dance or in documentary theater or in contemporary art. And then I ask the headquarters, so which specialist can you recommend now? And there in the headquarters in Munich, we have the specialists in theater, in film, in music, and this is very much how the Goethe-Institute works and how we promote our quality culture, here. And at the same time, I would have to stress, I think it's always important to work hard for your image. Of course. And even, or rather, because you have a good image, you must keep it, and you must work for it. And I think this is also a very Taiwanese thing, and in the Chinese-speaking world, it's what I noticed in this way. Our cultures are similar. People want to be better. They want to do good work. They want to improve. And it sounds very simple, but the sense of, oh, I want to improve myself. I want to be better. You must have this feeling, and some people don't have it, but in Taiwan and in Germany it's very strong, and this is the core reason how to develop and how to get better, how to do good work.
Exactly. And Jens, we've been talking about the different things that the Institute offers. What are some of the ongoing cultural and educational exchange programs that you have between Germany and Taiwan? Please.
In the language area, we are cooperating with local Taiwanese middle schools, and the impressive thing is that you have around 80 schools in Taiwan teaching German as a second foreign language, and we are cooperating with these to give teacher trainings, to offer exams, to give support to the schools with German teachers, and this is one very important area at the moment, as I think the earlier you start studying a foreign language, the better it is, because you have more time to master it well. In the cultural area, there are very big festivals and art events we are cooperating with. One would be the Taipei Arts Festival. The other one is the Taipei Biennial, which would take place in September. We have a focus on digital developments, which you would think it sounds strange now he's talking about digital things because he's working in culture, but even these digital developments, they have many cultural implications. You see, every area is getting more and more digitalized with our mobile phones, our apps, our iPads, our social media and our roles, our digital roles or personalities we sometimes even have. And this is very big cultural implications in the way you can ask, what's your personality, your role, how is it changing? You can also discuss the cultural aspect, what's private, what's public in this development. And in this framework, there is the big question also of rights, of copyrights, and also of creativity, because in the arts everything is now digital and online very quickly. In the past you had musicians who were doing their new compositions, and it was very exclusive. Nowadays you would discover, oops, oh, it's already online, or somebody else has done a similar thing.
Available,
and this creativity aspect, it's a very digital thing, and we are organizing also discussion forums on this with specialists from very different fields, which would also be the cultural aspect in it, that we bring together different disciplines to talk about these topics, to develop their ideas, also with specialists from Germany and from Taiwan, to discover maybe differences or similarities, and sometimes also to see how cultures can tackle problems in a different way, and to learn how our Taiwanese friends are doing it or how German people are doing it. This is the main areas we are focusing now on. Basically, I want to stress that it's not so much about my rigid targets. Well, definitely we have strategic aims which are very important, but in cultural exchange it's very much our partner's interest. I think it wouldn't be credible if I go to a cultural institution with my bag and say, oh, here, I put this out and I want to give it to you. This is a bit like selling in the street. The good thing here is that the artists are coming to us because we have been in Taiwan for many, many years.
Yes.
And I'm very happy that the local cultural people, they are raising their voice and they say, I want to cooperate with you in this area, I'm interested in this. And I would say this is much more efficient, it's more flexible, and but it's much more efficient because you have the other person on the boat.
Yes.
And if I just come and say, oh, I want to do this and this, well, maybe I convince you or not, but the better thing is to listen to the other side and say, what's your interest, and then and then to make my offers and how to meet.
Yes.
More credible, more convincing.
Okay. Yeah. And Jens, you've been talking about Taiwanese partners that you have. Let me ask you, what does it take for an organization or a person to be a partner for some of the programs and services that the Goethe-Institute offers?
Well, it's like in any partnership, I would say. It's several layers. No?
Yes.
To start with the very human, emotional ones, it needs trust.
Yes.
It needs reliability.
Yes.
In the way that you stick to what you say, what you sign, but it also needs in some ways flexibility.
Okay.
It needs cultural awareness, openness. Sometimes you notice, well, things are organized differently in each place and you must meet in the middle, and then also to get some distance towards yourself to say, oh, well, that's my German way of thinking, and maybe here it's not working because I'm a guest here, and then to adapt yourself. These are the very emotional soft factors. At the same time, you must have a common content-related interest.
Yes.
The Taiwanese partner must think, oh, this is interesting, or this is not just an add up, or this must be some cultural innovation which is not discussed here, or which Taiwanese people are not aware of. The third thing is the very technical things. How much budget do I put in? How much budget would the partner put in? How much do they need, or how much do they want us to contribute? And this is, I would say, the basic factors. And then at the same time, it needs a long cooperation. In this cultural field, sometimes people who are not working in it are not aware of it. You need a long time to establish trust and good cooperation. And in most countries, when it comes to economic constraints, the first sector suffering would be the cultural sector, because the people who are not into it, they think it's a nice add up. It's very easy to cut it down because there wouldn't be that many protests. But what you destroy with this, it's very difficult to rebuild it up, because mostly the corporations, the programs, the ideas you develop have grown over many years. And I would say a very specific thing about cultural cooperation and culture itself is just basically it's not a nice, beautiful add-on. Normally culture is discussing the same questions also discussed in politics and economy and social issues, but just in a very different way. Yes. Culture's main aim is to give a different viewpoint to issues which are very often very society related. We have an exhibition now this year having topics which are very much related to Taiwanese social life, politics, and just considering the questions, the issues. Let's a very easy example, sounds also very technical or crude, energy issues in Taiwan, which are discussed very much now in atomic energy and alternative energies, how to tackle this as a country, how to tackle the change. And also these questions are sometimes taken up in the arts, but just in very different ways, in different dialogues, from individual viewpoints. And I would say culture is very much about diversity.
And yes, we understand that usually one appointment to a foreign country is about 4 years. So for the remainder of your tenure in Taiwan, what will be the area that you have already thought about, or areas that you will plan to do some additional, programs or services to try to broaden and deepen the cultural exchanges between, Germany and Taiwan?
Basically, it's all our areas we are active in. The big challenge is, from a quantity point of view, to keep the numbers and to increase them, at the same time giving good quality advice. And one very important issue at the moment for us is also for the Goethe-Institute is to make known what we are doing in Germany itself. Because part of our support is coming from the German Parliament and also from the German Foreign Office. And the Goethe-Institute is very known in the countries where it's working, because here we are active, and in Germany you also have Goethe-Institutes, but mostly the image and being known, it's much more in the countries abroad. But at the same time, we have to be active also to show in Germany what we are doing abroad. And I think with Taiwan it's especially important, because I would also like to make more German people know what Taiwan is, what Taiwanese culture is. What I perceive over the years is that there are many, many Taiwanese people, and also in China, mainland China, people who know much about Western Europe, about Germany, but still not so many Germans being aware of what's available here. And it's needs to have really a partnership on the same eye level, which I want to have, is to make them know what we are doing here, or also what Taiwanese culture is. That's not my main task in the Goethe-Institute, to tell them what Taiwanese culture is, because I think I couldn't do it credibly because I'm still German. But in some ways we can still make our cultural programs two-side,
two-way traffic.
Two-way traffic, and that's important, I think.
All right. Certainly been very interesting and very informative, Jens, today have you on the program. I personally have learned a lot about yourself, about the Institute, and about the kinds of programs and services that you offer. I certainly want to wish you and the Institute all the best in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for watching our program today. I'll see you next time on MacroView Television. Thank you.